Without proper planning, D&D combat usually comprises of players finding their positions within the first 2 turns and then slapping each other around until someone eventually rolls really bad and someone dies. Fun, right? So how can we as DMs make combat feel more rewarding and engaging for our players? So why as a player might we find combat boring? After playing in a couple of games, these are the 3 main things I think about when combat isn't engaging me. Not knowing why we're here, not being challenged enough, and not having enough interesting options. Why are we fighting? Why are the enemies fighting us? When setting up an encounter, make sure that it's relevant to some if not all of your players. Because if it's not, don't be surprised when they don't want to fight. So why are we fighting? They could be trying to save an NPC they like, they could be trying to get an item that's important to them, maybe they're trying to stop the enemy who has a dangerous weapon. There are plenty of different reasons they could be fighting. They could be trying to just get some money, maybe it's revenge, or maybe they're being blackmailed into it. All of these whys also imply something that could be lost if the players choose not to fight, or if they fail. The enemies in this world are characters as well, they have their own motivations, so treat them like such. Don't just have them T-pose, waiting for the characters to come so they can spawn in. Different enemies are going to fight differently, so a bandit who is just trying to get a quick buck is probably not going to fight to the death. But a mercenary who's afraid of their boss probably might risk trying to die with you rather than face consequences with their boss. Not being challenged enough. What do we lose by fighting? I've had plenty of combats that kind of felt like this. I think the most interesting combat is when there's a give and take. Yes, you could get a lot of glory, but you could also get a lot of setbacks. Setbacks such as losing your life, losing your resources, or losing your strength. Your player should be aware that the enemy that they are fighting is going to be dangerous. You need to be able to set the scene correctly, and in order to do that, you need to be able to narratively show them that the enemy is deadly. Maybe they kill off a henchman, or they are just more physically imposing. Generally, I plan every fight with a singular enemy being able to dispose of a player within 2 to 3 turns, either through damage, a spell, or a mechanic. They usually have a fear that if they are surrounded, they could go down very quickly. So, players have to be more cautious of their positioning. When setting a fight, I plan to use up basically all of my players' resources. If a player fights, they should be aware that they're probably not going to be as good in upcoming scenes, in roleplay, or in maybe another fight. With this number in mind, if a party does really well, they'll have extra energy to use for the rest of the day, extra resources. If they just do average, they're going to look beat up. Fights are taxing. They shouldn't be as good at everything after the fight. If they do really poorly, they could die. It's also really important to make sure that your party's resources feel useful. If they have a lot of freedom abilities, give them a lot of sludge to move through. If they have a lot of healing, hit them really hard. This one's a little bit dicey, but I do really like to impose some temporary and permanent stat changes during and after a fight. These are homebrew rules and you don't need to use them, but using the 1D&D rules of exhaustion, I impose a level of exhaustion every time a player goes down. Because I imagine that if you are going down multiple times in a fight, you're slowly pushing yourself against the limits and you're just not going to be as good during the fight. This is my way of working around the whole healing word thing. If someone goes down during a fight, I think that they shouldn't be magically okay because they get 3 points of healing. My players using this rule have really tried to be a little bit more careful with how they position because they don't want to go down multiple times because it really imposes a negative for basically everything else after the fight. Another rule I started doing was if someone is knocked out for more than 3 turns in a row without getting any help from anyone, they're going to get just a negative stat. This is mostly just because I imagine if someone's out there bleeding out and they're not getting any help, they're just going to be struggling, and that's going to last. That's going to have lasting effects. Not having enough interesting options. A lot of my tips here actually come just straight from my experience from playing Baldur's Gate because I think they give you a lot to explore with. Free up the action economy. Bonus actions, potions is really fun. Wasting a turn on healing like 8 health really sucks, so make it a bonus action. And also, using shove as a bonus action is a really good option for characters who normally can't get out of attacks of opportunity. Lets them reposition, because a lot of the time people don't move because they're afraid of getting hit. I also throw in a lot of tackling and shoving from my enemies. This just forces the players to kind of like reposition themselves as enemies try to drag them behind different cover, which does just make the battle a little bit more dynamic. Add interactable objects into your fight, be it cover that you can move, It could be just bomb barrels, water that you can put like electricity to, some kind of thing that you could ignite. Anything like that is extremely fun to do. Okay, last thing, just let spell scrolls be consumables that anyone can use. It's super fun to be able to be a class who can't normally cast these spells and be able to use them without any restrictions. It adds a bunch of variety to your gameplay. Okay, bye.